Alright, picking up where I left off last week. I thought I'd just be plugging everything back in, securing some wires on the back there, and proceeding with my package tray. But it turned into a bit of a job, mainly because of this harness that has to go up into the roof, into this area over here to service the tail light, and also to plug into the shark fin radio antenna that's on the roof. What I ended up having to do is, the way this wire was these wires were included in this bundle. See the way this bundle comes up and over, and then it tucks down, and then it goes along the floor back over here. Before it goes, this goes to the back of the car, but then this goes up the side over here, is attached here. Believe it or not, this distance from here to here was making it impossible for one of these plugs, this purple plug, to reach the area, have enough length to reach this area over in the center over here. So I had to go from the very top of this bundle, and I had to very carefully untape it and pull these couple of wires out of here, and create its own harness that so that I could run it at more of a diagonal. You see it's coming out over here, and then it's running at a diagonal behind the panel, and it joins up over here with the normal bundle, so that I have enough room to, once I get this headliner out, to run it across the ceiling over into this area. One of the things that I found out on this deal that I wasn't aware of on the last car that I built, we had some problems with the radio reception, regular AM FM radio. I just assumed that everything ran through this shark fin over here, but that's not true. What I discovered is when I was taking out the rear glass of this car, it has it had a grid on it. Of course, the Challenger glass had a grid on it, which is for heating up and defrosting the rear glass. And I never really took a close look at it, but it turns out that there's a small module right here that plugs into this cable here, which I thought this was just something, because there's a snap on the back of the glass at the top right here. This I thought this was some kind of a, who knows, temperature monitor or something for that grid. I looked a little closer at that glass, which I still have the glass in the trailer, and it's split. There's a grid from here to here that's actually the heater grid, and this upper grid is an antenna. So my apologies to Don. I don't recall pulling this module out of that car as a 2011, but I'm sure that it's probably in there, and this wire's probably somewhere buried in there. But hopefully I ran it to the top where he's got an access panel and he could plug this in. The other problem is this end here has to plug into an antenna. The next problem is where am I going to locate that antenna? Because there's obviously nothing in this back glass here that would replace this grid that was in the back glass of the Challenger. So I have to see if there's anything that an antenna that I can put down here in the package tray itself that'll do the same job as the one that was up here in the glass on the Challenger. That's something I'm gonna have to get some advice from somebody who knows a little bit more about radios and all that good stuff, because I know if you don't put the antenna in the right place, it doesn't do anything. At any rate, just a journey of discovery, and again, my apologies to Don, because I probably tossed that little pod thinking it was something that had to do with the this heating element over here, and it's actually the antenna for the AM FM radio. I'm going to say, because I looked up the part number and it says that it's an antenna amplifier. Alrighty, so moving on. Okay, so as far as this radio antenna is concerned, gone ahead and put the amplifier, mounted it up here. This is in case what I'm about to do doesn't work, and then I have to do something else. I went to the automotive sound store that's been in business around here for about 40 years. and the only thing that they said was a couple things. Number one, it's just got to be at least 33 inches long, the whatever I use for an antenna, because that's optimal for FM. And the only thing that they had to offer in the way of a substitute was a powered antenna, which I have one of those in my car, and it doesn't work. So that's not something that I want to fool with. Maybe the only solution in the long term, I don't know. But like I said, I took the time to put one of those in my car, but I might have other issues, I don't know. So I just want to keep the stock stuff. So all this did was this attached to the bottom side of the glass, and I'll show you what the glass looks like and what the antenna at the top of the glass looks like. And it's just a metallic film silk screened onto the glass itself, and then a little contact right here. So this is the actual antenna right here, and this is actually 43 inches long across the top of the glass, and then this is of course the to heat the glass up for defrosting it. So I'm just going to replicate this with some copper wire and a connector, and just go from there. I don't see that it could be any worse than this. I'll put it at the base of the new glass, actually on the package tray itself, so it's hidden, and hopefully the materials of the package tray don't interfere with the reception. And that's what I'm going to do with this. Okay, so the next thing I've just done is glued down some of this 1-inch dowel foam here. That way my package tray material, which is 1/8 of an inch thick, just overcomes all of this equipment that's sticking up. This is the highest piece right here. Again, it adds a little bit of sound deadener to this panel, which is always a plus. So now we'll try to cut out a shape for the package tray. Okay, like everything else, it's best to sneak up on this. The first thing I've done is I've taken some scrap material, or the material I'm going to use, the 1/8 inch material I'm going to use to make the package tray, and I lined them up with the back edge of the styrofoam here, because I want this. I'm going to have a piece that's going to fold down and go under the slip here. So this is where this edge has to be. This edge is lined up so that I can put a flange on the front over here that matches the angle of the seat back area. And I've taken these two pieces, and you can see over there I've worked them into the corners and around the headliner corner at the bottom over here, and they're slightly different. So I had to make two patterns, one for either side, and now all I have to do is measure this in between here, which I've already done over here, and make sure that's parallel, and then that basically I can set this pattern up on a full sheet and cut it all out and have my my finished piece here. And so that's what I'm going to do next. All right, so that's that top piece cut out and fit. You can see it fitting into the corners over there. Now I've got to put the front edge on, which will be made out of metal, front and rear, and we'll go on from here. Okay, this is where we're at. I went ahead and bent a piece of 035 to the proper angle to create this front edge, and I riveted through the 035 to the back side with countersunk rivets all the way along here. Then I sanded off this edge so that it matches this angle. I added a couple attachment tabs here. I also did some clearancing over here in order that this panel is not trapped by the side panels. And you'll have to take off two caps on either side once I build those relative to this, and then this will be able to be slid out without taking the entire interior out in case there's an issue with any of the sound components up underneath of this panel, or if my solution to the antenna, which will be underneath this panel, doesn't work out. then you'll have access to all the components that are underneath this panel, like I said, without tearing the two inner door panels off. And this piece over here, it's got a slight angle on it, and it's going to have one more piece of this masonite on it, and this will tuck up under the window. It's bent at a slight angle, and then it's shrunk on both edges in order to give it a slight crown to hold this masonite in the shape of the rear window, because the rear window has a slight arc to it. So still have to drill speaker holes and other things like that, and so that's where I'm at with this. Okay, so I got this rear flange on, and I added this last piece of masonite on here. This enables me to kind of tweak this so that it holds up pretty good to the bottom of the glass perimeter. What I also did was I riveted it through with some steel countersink rivets. Then I cut them off just a little bit high, a little proud of the surface. And then I took a dolly, and then I held it on the face side and peened them down. Main reason for that is, as you can see, my styrofoam over here, where these rivets, I'm going to have to cut this out just a little bit to make sure that this thing doesn't catch trying to slide it in or out on the rivets. So I'll also be putting something over top of those rivets to smooth out the surface, like some of that rubber tape, possibly. Anyway, I went ahead and I got my corner templates again, fit them in their kind of paper pattern to match, so that I could just use my finger to press in this location for the speakers that are already mounted in there. So now that I've got this, I can drill my hole pattern for my speakers. Anyway, moving on from here. Okay, now that I have the speaker holes located with those patterns, I went ahead and cut these speaker hole out of the original package tray, and I'll use that as a guide to drill out all these holes. Simple enough. Okay, so I've got to come up with a substitute for the antenna that's in the rear window. You could see that this grid on the back window is split into two. This lower half here is what is used to defrost the glass. This section above over here, these four ribs here, and then it's connected over here. And there's a couple of vertical lines off also over here, silk screen printed in with a metallic ink. And then right here, there's a little snap connection that the little amplifier module goes to. So what I did was I just went ahead and just checked it to see it's just a conductor, and I used a continuity tester, and you can see that just by touching it, you know, there's continuity from that snap throughout that grid. So it's just a metallic silkscreen ink on the back side there, and so I have to try to come up with something to substitute for that grid. So this is what I've come up with. I'm just taking number 12 household wire, and I stripped out the bare ground wire. That's the center wire, and I've come up with this grid that's it's about 43 inches long, which that's about 43 inches long, and these are spaced. These four ribs are spaced about 1 inch apart. I've got a little allowance here for where this thing is going to lay. It's going to lay on the package tray. I've got this little mat here, and it's going to lay right here and go around the speakers. I'm going to attach it to a piece of plastic so it doesn't distort, warp, or shift around. And then I've already got the module mounted over here. I have to change the plug end over here, and I'll plug it in on this end here. Hopefully the only thing between it and an FM signal will be that little piece of material, that piece of masonite that's going to be used for the package tray, and hopefully it'll operate the same way as the piece that's stuck to the glass. It can't be any worse than what else is available, I can tell you that much. Like I said, I've got the amplified antenna in my car, and that's a waste of time. And I've read on a couple of forums with people with similar problems of not getting reception in their FM radios, switching over to those and having the same situation. It's kind of just a waste of time. Anyway, so what I've done here is I've got this aluminum plate, and I've got everything. I've just drilled on either side of the wire pattern here, and I've got some these plastic tie-down straps, just holding everything in place. So I'm going to solder up all the loose ends. I'm going to crisscross the grid to connect them all, make it a little bit more substantial, and then I'm going to run a leg out that I can put a connector on to connect this up to that module. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it will. There's not a whole lot of difference between this and what's stuck to the glass over there. So, okay, I tried soldering this grid together with just a regular soldering gun, but it doesn't generate enough heat, or didn't generate enough heat. So what I ended up doing was just using a little map gas torch, and just basically flashing it until it would heat this up, sort of like you would sweat copper pipes for plumbing, so that I could solder this all together. I guess the combination of the wire being so thick and being on an aluminum plate like this, it was just wicking the heat away, and the lead wouldn't melt on with a regular soldering gun. So the map gas got me what I wanted, and connected everything up. So now I just got to put a little plug end on this, and then I'm going to mount this. I think I'm going to mount this on a piece of masonite, 1/8-inch masonite, and so it all stays nice and neat together. At any rate, that's the situation right now. Okay, so I decided to, instead of mounting the antenna to a piece of masonite or anything like that and putting it in this area here, I decided to remove this piece of styrofoam and make another piece, run it on the table saw so that I could make some grooves and embed the antenna into this piece of styrofoam so that it's below the surface of this build-up piece. Because what was happening is, by the time I put a mat down here to, dampen the vibration of the antenna, it was building up a little too high. I was a little proud over here, and I was worried that was going to cause some issues. So now it'll be secure in this location here, and you can see that I went ahead and I soldered on a male end over here, and then this is the female end that'll attach to that amplifier pod. Anyway, hope it works. Don't know if it will or not. I don't see why it wouldn't. It's exactly a duplicate of what was already in the car, except the grid was in the glass up here, and this is just going to be below one layer of masonite and some fabric. Hopefully that's not enough to interrupt a good FM signal. So we shall see. Okay, so that's what it all looks like in place. You can see it's below the surface. That was my whole goal here, and also to keep it from rattling around. It's stabilized inside this. It's in there pretty tight in that styrofoam. At any rate, that's where I am right now. Moving on to the next thing. Okay, so this is the package tray covered up with this trunk liner material. And on the back side, I just have it covered with a little bit of felt. And the reason for that was the styrofoam that I used, that pink styrofoam, as a build-up. It has a tendency, this stuff is smooth on the one side, or both sides I should say, and believe it or not, while I was installing this, I mean, that stuff was squeaking like crazy. So I had to get an intermediate material in here that had wouldn't basically cause that noise to occur, and so I just lined the bottom with a little bit of felt. Should help it come in and out, because now this rim here that was riveted is smoothed over also. Anyway, that's what it's looking like installed in the car. Let's see if we can get a shot of it from the inside here. Oh, that's basically it. How it fits up and finishes out the headliner. Those two tabs hanging down there. I've got to put a couple screws in there to hold it down, And that should be it. Okay, one of the last little transition pieces that had to be made up was at the top back of the quarter panel cards. Have to transition into the package tray and also cap off the top of that open space that's at the top of the back door card. And this is the cap that has a lot of little jobs to do. First, it has to cap the top of that hole. The belt comes out right over here, and then it has to allow a space for the wires that come up over underneath of the package tray in the corner. So that's why it sweeps up instead of making a, just like a face and then a flat. And it has to make it up to the top of the package tray in order to conceal the hole in the package tray where the wires pass through. And so it has to do all those little jobs. So it's a little complicated panel that had to match up all the angles on the panel also. And the way to fasten it, because the only thing to fasten it to is the plastic panel itself, is these are blind rivets, and you can see how they operate. It's almost like a pop rivet. It basically has a special gun, and it grabs the threads and then it squeezes it around whatever you're putting it in, and then it creates a threaded insert, a nutsert. So I've got these little ones that are they're 632, I believe, and basically I'm just going to put one in here real quick. It's like about a 1/4 inch hole, and just show you how that all. So then I would put the this is the gun that I use. It has a threaded end over here, and it basically pulls that aluminum and squeezes it right here. So now I have a pretty decent mechanical fastener that I can use a machine screw for, instead of just trying to put a self-tapping screw into the plastic, which would last about 5 minutes. Just screwing it and unscrewing it for whatever reasons, it would, after a while, would lose its grip. Anyway, so lots of little pieces like this is what takes up a lot of time. But anyway, I'll show you that when it's in. Okay, before I put it in, I just thought I'd show you the area I'm addressing. It's back over here, and I've got to basically cap off that transition spot there. Now, with this being able to be unscrewed like this and this cap being able to be taken off, you can take it off, and then you can slide the package tray cover off if you had to get to any of those components, as far as the radio or the amplifiers or the antenna or the speakers, so that you wouldn't have to take these panels off, because these panels are trimmed below this rim over here. So I'm going to put it in, and I'll show you when I get it screwed in there. Okay, so that's pretty much what it looks like when it's done. You can see this pocket, this little chimney is still open for the belt to pass through. The other thing I still have to do is I have to make little covers for this, just for decorative purposes only. But anyway, that's how that's going to look. Okay, so the final thing that I'm working on is a cover for these pieces over here, where the belt's bolted into the side of the headliner. Normally that would be hidden behind an inner A-post panel, but it was looking very bulky when I was trying to do that, and it would have to be applied after the headliner was in. So I decided to just go with something just a little bit close to the bone here, a little simpler. So basically what I've come up with is just a little sheet metal cap that it covers over the bolt head, so that doesn't look terrible. And then it just, these two screws go through a couple of standoffs. The standoffs 3/8 tubing welded to the back side of this to keep it proud of the bolt head here, and then they're just tapped into the back of this plastic piece here that guides the belt. At any rate, so I'm going to take this off now and give it a little bit of body work and paint it up, and I'll show you what that looks like when that's up and installed. Before I go ahead and finish this out, I just thought I'd show you what the standoffs look like on the backside. Just a piece of 3/8 tubing, 5/16 tall, just a little slightly taller than the bolt head that's in the center here. and that's what it looks like. Nothing fancy. Okay, so that's what that cap looks like installed, and you can see this other side also. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up the interior, other than the upholstery work that has to be done again on the headliner. So it's time to clean up the mess I got going around here and gather some of my tools back so we can go on to the next phase of this build. Which the next phase of this build, we moved to the outside finally. The first thing I have to do is I have to change the springs out of this car and get it lowered, and see how that all works out. I've got an inch and 1.4 inches drop in the rear and 1.7 for the front, and I've got some upper A-frames that are adjustable over here to try to bring the camber back to where it belongs once it's dropped. And then it'll be on to cutting off these beautiful quarter panels and moving them out about 2 inches to start the wide body activity. And actually that won't happen right away. The first thing's got to happen is I've got to deal with all the substructure coming off the bumper to support the wing, because that thing weighs about 100 pounds. The gas filler, that has to work out there, and the floor that extends out to the back of the car from the Challenger floor all the way to the back of this car. All of that stuff has to be worked on with the quarter panels off. It's just a lot easier to access all of that while the quarter panel's off. I'll be cutting it right about here, about an inch, 3/4 of an inch in on the top side over here, and then we'll be moving that all out. And then we'll have to mock up the doors, get the doors pushed out about an inch in the front over here, so that we have less of an abrupt transition, because the front fenders will also be out about 2 inches to try and steer these wheels without making a big radius in these wheel openings. We'll see how that works out, and so we're moving on from here. Thanks for everybody for watching, and I will see you on the next one.